all of our friends around the world. This is Gingerly, episode 13. I'm PurpleSoy22 with my co-host Style Pigeon. How's it going, Style Pigeon? What's new in the Pigeon verse?
Things have been crazy lately. I'm having a lot of fun building the Pigeon brand and just being Pigeon. So you asked what's new. That's on purpose. We're going to probably start doing this a little bit more often. Just talking about what we've actually got going on outside of Gingerly and anything that you might want to be interested in, because we're realizing that our interests are more diverse than Gingerly fully allows for. So today, the big bit of news is the first ever Gingerly related or Bitcoin related merch from us. We're really excited to announce that styledpigeon.com is actually up and running now. There's a bunch of my personal stuff on there, but at the very top, you'll be able to find the merch. These are AI generated images that I did some design work for, and I did all the prompt gen and all that, and then did some Photoshop work after the fact to get those up there for you. So if you want some Bitcoin merch that's a little bit different and not just a big orange bee on a t-shirt, you can head over to styledpigeon.com and pick that stuff up now. While you're there, I always appreciate you checking out the website. That's kind of going to become the hub for all of the Styled Pigeon stuff, and hopefully have a Discord and stuff coming up soon, but that's in the future. So that's what's going on with me. How about you? Do you have anything going on lately this past week?
Yeah, first of all, I love that. And to the people that didn't specifically notice, there are two color options. There's black and there's purple, because I realized on Twitter the other day that I don't have enough purple gear. And each one can come in either black or purple. So you can just click on the drop down box and
So
change the color.
I'll add to that. There are actually full options. So the Bitcoin T-shirt, the one that actually looks like a coin, has some extra options in there thrown in for, because I know as we were talking amongst some friends and talking about favorite colors and whatnot, and so I added some light blue for casual and a couple other colors, just in case somebody wants to actually be fashionable instead of being rugged looking like me.
Purple and rugged. That's how we roll. I love it. Man, for me, the last couple weeks have been crazy. I'm sure we'll dive in more because we're going to be talking about stacks. We're going to be talking about ordinals. Today we're talking with our good friend Jack Binswitch about hustling. So I'm really excited. I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of the stuff that both of us have been working on. But hey, before we dive in real quick, I want to give a plug for our sponsors, Roundly X. Super thankful for Roundly X. They're a simple to use app that allows you to round up your purchases into Bitcoin and other digital assets every time you spend. I find it the easiest way to keep stacking Bitcoin. You can use code Gingerly, as you can see on the screen here, to sign up and get $4 of Bitcoin when you finish your first roundup, which is dope. And if you're into NFTs or any other financial assets, you can track all of those in Roundly X alongside your crypto. So check them out, roundlyx.com. And without further ado, let's dive in. Nick, could you roll the video, please? Awesome. We got to get Mr. Jack Binswitch up on stage here. Mr. Special Guest. Hey, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, how y'all doing? Thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I've been really excited to have this conversation. Me and Pigeon have been talking about bringing you on the show for, at least a couple months now. So I'm glad we finally made it happen.
No, it's cool. This is officially my very first podcast.
So hey.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an honor for us, actually.
Yeah, this is cool. This is awesome. Yeah. I can finally convince my wife that all of this time I've spent in this space has paid off, right?
You're legit, man. Yeah. I remember the first time I came on my first podcast, and it was a Bitcoin live show with my producer, Nick. So, full circle, dude. It's really cool. Oh, hey, could you give us like a brief word of intro? And then other than that, we're just going to kind of keep it informal and talk through some questions and, chat about hustling in the crypto space.
Yeah. Actually, I'm a husband. I have 6 kids. Being a dad's like the best thing I've ever done with my life, and some congratulations are in order, right? So that's awesome.
Oh yeah, I haven't mentioned that on the page yet, but yeah.
But yeah, so I in my fiat mining job, I am a registered nurse. I've been doing that for quite some time. critical care management. Now I do more providing palliative care for people with chronic conditions who, they're towards the end of their lives. And yeah, that's cool. I got into crypto back in 2017, actually. So I've been in the space here for a minute now.
Nice.
And this is my passion, right? So and it feeds into it's weird how when you go through life, you kind of stack things on top of one another, and they build on earlier things that you've done. And I feel as though, like, being here right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be,
Yeah. I do know, man. I 100% agree with what you're saying. I am in the very fortunate position of being able to work in Web3 full time myself, both NeoSwap and Realmly X. And man, it's what I've always wanted to do. So, and Pigeon, I know you're starting to feel in a similar way between your fiat mining job and then also adding in all these awesome new things that you're working on, right?
Yeah, Jack, so that you're aware, I think we've mentioned this before, but I'm one of the people that just calls and tries to bug you about new medications that come out. I actually manage an inside pharma team or pharma sales team. So we'll have to talk about some products later on.
Oh yeah.
I can't let you go without
Sure.
giving you a detail. So, but yeah, I often lament. This evening, I'll go through my normal coping mechanisms to get my head right for the fact that I have to go into work tomorrow, and mine some fiat. Like you said, I like that terminology.
Right.
But
Yeah. No.
constantly trying to, make time to actually hustle. And I guess that's in no small part what the episode's really about, is how really how we are trying to do what John has done in some capacity. I'm sure you're actually more fulfilled working in palliative care and whatnot than many people that work in the space, having to deal with doctors or family practice or something like that. Maybe it's just a grind for them. Palliative care can be actually really rewarding.
You're right.
Just
It can
being
be.
able to help people during that stage. John and I actually had to go through some witnessing some of that fine work being done in our personal lives fairly recently. So one, thank you for what you do for that space, but also I can't wait to see what happens in the near future with this space too. I watch you hustle, and every time I see something on Twitter, I'm blown away at your amount of presence that you can put forward online and contribute to the space in the way that you do.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. And what I do now for a living is about the only kind of nursing that I can really tolerate anymore. Not just physically. I had a bad back before I started nursing. It's about at the end of its rope, but it is the most rewarding thing, right? There's so much frustration in healthcare and in that space, and got into it to want to help people in the first place. And this is actually where you can help people the most, as odd as that sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I echo Pigeon's thanks to you for sure. It's been really cool to be able to see that part of life, from our perspective. So yeah, I want to just dive into the episode title. We started off with the Web3 writing revolution, which we're definitely going to get into. But something that Pigeon and I have been talking about recently is this idea of Bitcoin changing people for the better in ways that have nothing to do with finances or with money or things like that. Like health is often an area that tends to improve in people's lives when they get into Bitcoin. And that's pretty dang cool, in my opinion. But so one thing that we talked about when we were talking about what we were going to chat with Jack Binswitch about was hustle, because that's something that people throw around loosely in the space. But both Pigeon and I agree, especially in the stacks space, but also just in our network in general. Jack Binswitch is one of the biggest hustlers that we know, and so we wanted to talk
Thank
about
you.
what is it what is it about Web3 that makes you hustle so hard? And I think that we're going to start doing this in general and start asking our guests, hey, what drives you? But I think you're the great first person to start this conversation on.
That's cool. And it's an answer that is a little more complex than you would think initially, in that, for one, if I remember back in like 2006 or so, I learned who, no, it was about 2004. I learned who Ron Paul was. Okay. Ron Paul is this goat, and he's talking about in the Fed and audit the Fed and all of these different things. And so you start learning and you start realizing, hey, something's not right. Something's off. And then when you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the underlying motivation of this, is that we have a broken financial system that disenfranchises people, and it really has caused a lot of pain in the world. And so that's probably the foundation. And then as you build up from that, you get into, we're also at the same time akin to like the San Francisco gold rush miners, right? Like when you see where this is going, you realize the scope of the opportunity that is present in this space. And you not just financial, but the opportunity to actually build the things that need to be built in order for us to transition away from this this Federal Reserve system, central banking system scam, right? So
Yeah.
that's important. And so you're like, wow, what does it take to get from where we are to where we want to be? And it quite simply comes down to a matter of education for the vast majority of people, right?
Mhm.
Most people just do not know how their money works. They've never thought about it. I've talked to people in real life who still astonishingly believe that their money's backed up by gold, right?
Yeah.
So
Me
then you're
too.
like, okay, education. That's so
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the long answer to a concise question.
No, I think that's a perfect answer, because I've been a gamer for a really long time, and so a lot of times when I'm thinking about things, I'll do it from a gaming perspective, right? And it's when you get into the Web3 space, it's almost like a choose your character sort of thing to begin with, and that character is based on whoever you are outside of that, right? So you take this like very educational approach, and that's something that likely you have to do with patients on a regular basis. You say, hey,
Correct.
by the way, patient, you have hypertension. This is what that means. I know you can't feel it, but these are the repercussions of that. And so we're going to treat it this way. And this is how that all works, right? That's educational. For me, it was a sales thing. And I was actually looking at the space and listening to some of the stuff that John had going on, and I was like, wow, like really the problem is that nobody's providing any good sales messaging for crypto. Like everybody's so smart and so disconnected from what we would call normies that there's no way that they can linguistically interpret this for people to actually understand. So it's like we're all doing what we would do otherwise, just in this space now. And I think that's another element of how it injects itself into your life and then starts to change things somehow. It's almost like a possession is how I think
Right.
about it. It's like all of a sudden I'm possessed by this information that I can't let go of, and it's something I call Fight Club syndrome. You remember the movie Fight Club, Edward Norton and
Oh yeah.
Brad Pitt? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Love that.
So
Love that flick.
when I was in high school, I started doing free running and parkour as a way to kind of just be a little bit more of a man, and I wanted to be physical and have this thing, and it started feeling like this secret that I had that nobody else understood. And it was like I knew something that nobody around me knew at all. They had no way to fathom what I'm experiencing. And that's a lot of what Web3 feels like to me. And we walk a very dangerous line between knowing that information and feeling good about it, and therefore not wanting other people to know. But I've experienced the stack space as being the exact opposite. It's like I know this special thing and I want to give it to anyone that I can.
Right. And that's a very astute observation. Like that's amazing.
Thank you.
So
John, keep us on track because otherwise I have a feeling
no,
that
yeah.
Jack and I are going to be off to
This
the races.
this is exactly what I wanted, to be honest. So I want to come back to the heavier, to the more weighty question later. I'm going to go ahead and preview. I'm going to ask you in a little while, how has Bitcoin and Web3 changed your life? But leading up to that, so you've been in the space since 2017, and probably to people who are watching right now, you're known as, the awesome Mohawked Explorer Guild guy that writes incredible content.
Thank you.
And so I kind of want to hear, what was the journey like to becoming Jack Binswitch? Like, how did you go from getting into crypto in 2017 to now being one of the most prolific writers in the Stacks ecosystem? Like, honestly, it's a fascinating journey that you've taken. I want to hear more about it.
Cool, man. So it's a good question with a long answer. Back in 2017, I'd been doing healthcare management for a while. And when you get that close to you see how the sausage is made, so to speak, right? You kind of get disenfranchised. And I have a heart for elderly people. And I started my first startup, and which was going to be focused on providing a better alternative in the market for long-term healthcare than is currently on the market. And I failed spectacularly because I did not have product market fit. Turns out that people assume that when their parents or grandparents need that kind of care, that the care they're going to get's great. So it failed spectacularly. I literally lost everything. I had to borrow money from my mother to get my car out of repossession, and I had to borrow money from a nursing agency to pay the gas money to get to a travel nurse assignment so I could start rebuilding my life. And it was during that assignment where I'd heard about Bitcoin back in like 2010, 2012, on TV, Max Kaiser talking about it. And I'd had so much going on in my own life at that time. I had a father who was chronically ill, and I didn't really pay any attention. And so I'm out here, I'm in this hotel, going back and forth in an extended stay, actually, going back and forth to work, no one to talk to, just a lot of time on my hands. So a lot of time on the internet, and Bitcoin's really starting to take off. And at the same time, I'm in a period in the year where I know I have property taxes coming due quick. So I'm like, I have to make some money. Like I have to make money. I have to pay my taxes. And I started like just blindly and somehow by the grace of God lucking out and making some money so I could pay my taxes. Wow. And that was it. That was the start, right? Because when I got into it, I have a personality that is one that I get hyper focused on things. And so I was like, I have to learn about this.
Yeah.
And when I started to understand it, and in crypto has an incredibly steep learning curve for me, at least. And as I started to understand it, I did see a lot of potential. So I never really got cynical about things like altcoins, because I always knew that this technology was going to be able to do something. And I'm old enough to remember the original .com boom, right? Like,
right.
And it was the same thing. People saw potential. Then there was just a bunch of everything slapped a .com on it, a bunch of vaporware. Most of it failed, but some really amazing things were built. So I knew this was coming, right?
Yeah.
So initially, my foray into crypto just became one of learning how to trade, and but as you go and you start to realize, you get away from Coinbase and you start trading on these different exchanges, and you start getting into these little small crypto communities, and you're like, wow, community is kind of a big part of this, right? Like this is fun, this is exciting, this is a way to relate with other people who think like you do. And then, as you go through the years, you start seeing this Web3 idea. And I'm actually working on a thesis about crypto people and Web3 people. I haven't fully put my thoughts together yet, but
this is fascinating.
It's going to be cool. But but yeah, so you start seeing this and you start having some ideas about how things should be, in terms of community and how we relate to each other, and the way that, you can have an economic model built on top of all of these things. And I'm just not a technical dude. I'm not, right? Like I can degen crypto any way, shape, or form. Like if anyone listening knows what Trade Ogre is, like I was there. I was at Trade Ogre.
Wow.
I'll do any of this, but I'm not technical. And I always wanted to participate. I always knew there was some way to participate, and I just didn't know what it was. And as as this becomes a more mature space, you're seeing that play out, right? Not just with being able to write about these things, but like think about how many gifted artists there are who were also into crypto, and then once NFTs became a thing, they're like they can now participate, right?
Yeah.
And your musicians and so forth. And so you're seeing this technical layer being built on top, where there's the social layer, and then there's these other things. And I'm sure that trend's just going to keep continuing. So when I discovered Stacks initially, it was back in probably October of 2022, and I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but the chart looked very toppy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this on my radar, but I'm not buying right now. This is just no. So by like March, things started looking like they were getting ready to, the bottom was going to fall out. I started doing a little more research, and I was like, wow, Stacks, this is it. Like this is what I've been looking for. Like this is real utility. It's on Bitcoin. And then I saw something about Rider ID on Twitter, and I started kind of delving into what they were doing. And when I saw the Rider device and their vision for it, I'm like, that's the iPod, bro. That is literally going to do what the iPod did for essentially Web 2, right? So I was like, man, I have to get into these NFTs a little bit and just see what's going on, because up until that point I just traded tokens and coins.
Right.
And and then I found Sigle, and I like the PFP, and I started doing a little research, and it's like, whoa, this is awesome. I love blogs. Like I've been reading blogs since the early 2000s. This is fantastic. So I just, when I started writing, I really didn't know what I was going to write about, other than I just wanted to write about things I liked.
Right.
And in one of my earlier posts, I wrote something personal, and someone reached out to me via DM on Twitter and said that it helped them. Like reading what I said, like helped them. And when that happened, I was all in. Like I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like that's what matters. So that's pretty much how it started.
I love that, man. It's crazy how similar of a journey we took, because I took the content production route myself when I first started learning about crypto way back in the day. Nothing existed but forums. Like there wasn't even really websites or videos. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to just start writing about this stuff, because I need to see if I can understand it well enough to put it into plain English, And that's what's crazy about this space, is that if you see a need and you feel like you can fill a hole, you can just do it. It's not like you have to be a part of a company, or you have to know anything special, or have a degree, or, anything like that. So
that's actually been one of the big changes for me, as far as how Bitcoin has changed my life, so to speak. Is I'm not a very social person unless it's like one-on-one, 2v1 max. I don't like to be doing the Twitter thing. That takes a lot of effort for me to actually keep up with everyone. It's exhausting for me, actually. So one of the things that pulled me so hard into Web3 was actually just being welcomed into the Bitcoin Badgers community, where they were like, hey, all we do is play mini golf in VR on Wednesdays. Like that's all you have to do. And I would show up for the mini golf sessions, and they'd be dropping alpha about this project or that project, because everybody's so involved in the community. And I was like, holy cow, like somebody wants to hear this information, and somebody also likes VR, just like the Bitcoin Badgers do. And so I was like, hey, like I've got a PC rig that could easily stream this while we're playing VR, which is a sizable load. John knows what I mean. It's not like the
I used to stream it. My computer couldn't handle it.
So my PC can handle it, and so I just started doing that for him. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, why don't you come to the community meetings and give us your input on this, that, or the other. And like this morning I was in a call for a VR game that's in development. Like how did
Wow.
I get here? I know nothing about VR
Exactly.
development. But it's just I'm good at being the dum dum and asking the questions and being like, I don't understand this, you need to explain it better. And hopefully it helps, and I get to be involved in the community and have a blast and be part of this brand new world we're somehow building.
Yeah. No, that's right. And Purple, you said it right, man. Like, you don't need permission. The zero authority DAO guys, really, that's their philosophy. And when I first spoke to them and they talked about that, it was just like, it clicked, right? You don't need permission. Like, this is your work ethic, your values, your drive, your talents. That's your ticket,
Yeah, absolutely. And either you get rewarded or not based off of the quality of your effort. And I think that's something that encourages hustlers like the four of us on this call, including Nick. Like we see an opportunity and we're like, I know that I can put in the quality of effort to put out something that no one else has put out. Or if someone else has, like, I know I can do it in my particular way and people can find it, and it's crazy because people used to say back in 2016, 17, oh, like crypto's big thing is cutting out the middleman. People don't really talk about that as much anymore because it's assumed, but it's still really freaking cool to be able to think I can blog and I can even get direct monetary compensation for my blog in crypto without having to worry about, royalties or the big guy taking from me and all that kind of stuff. So it's really
Right.
powerful.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated now that we've talked about content production and all that kind of stuff. One thing that Pigeon and I are constantly wrestling over is how to pronounce the name Sigle, whatever. I don't know. I still don't know.
The confusion, I think, comes because the team, the Sigil team, they're French, right? So
Okay.
I think it's just a matter of a sigil, probably being, pronounced sigil with that dialect, right? So
Gotcha.
I try to I say sigil just because that's what I understand the word, right? But if I'm ever on a call with Leo and Quentin and the rest of the team, I'll call it whatever they want. Like, I'm crazy about those dudes,
That's fair. Yeah, they're always doing incredible stuff. I have the pleasure of working with them right now at NeoSwap. BitClays is doing a really cool ordinals drop right now. So yeah, awesome
Yeah.
team. But hey, could you break down, like, kind of for our audience, what Sigil is? Like how you use it, how people could get into it, just to kind of give our audience an idea.
Yeah. So I think the biggest takeaway is that when you go back to like March 2022, if you remember, the social media censorship was like at an all-time high, right?
Yeah.
And then so here's this blog that it's gated. You own the NFT, and now you have access to the application for
And
as
that's
long
called the
as you.
Explorer collection, right? Is the
That's
PFP?
correct.
Yeah.
So you own this, and that is lifetime access to this platform. And it is like everything else built on stacks, anchored to Bitcoin, right? So when you use it, nobody else uses your data. It's all about your own keys.
Wow.
When I publish something, it is published. And nobody can alter anything about it. So that is the first thing that really drew me to it. Like, because I was an outspoken critic of like the pandemic and so forth, and I got kicked off of Twitter a bunch of times, and I was like, you know what, I'm not going to shut up, so I'm going to use this, and nobody can stop it, right? So that's the first thing, and they it's such a cool product, it's such a cool team. They were one of the first, if not the first, to like fund their development through the NFT sales, and so they're always pushing updates. But even back then, it was still, it was much more primitive than it is now. But I can track my analytics. I can see, there's a variety of metrics you can measure using their app, and you can use it for free without it. You just don't have access to all of the tools, right? Um, I can track analytics. There's a newsletter, you can now send a newsletter out to people, and they're doing some really cool stuff where they're integrating this whole new suite of features that's really going to put this on the map for a larger audience. And at the end game is you'll be able to have subscriptions just like
Wow.
Substack or what have you. And most people don't know that yet. It's not on their radar. And my personal thing, I'll tell any content creator who's writing about crypto in this space right now, when you have Mr. Burns, I mean Gary Gensler, running around here, acting at the behest of Goldman Sachs, I bet you that unless, because we're at this tension point with this industry, with our tech versus people trying to stop our tech, man, if you're making your living on Substack and writing about crypto, I'd be worried.
Yeah.
I'd be worried, just straight up. Like, and not to mention the fact that why are you writing about, the future using an application on the past?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and at the very least, the other thing to consider is, why would you want to be a, small fish in a big pond? You're on Substack. This is being early to something has its benefits, right?
Amen. Yeah,
Being an early
100%.
adopter, I would 100% rather be an early adopter to a brand new technology. Especially if it aligns with my values, especially if it aligns with what I want to talk about and believe in. So yeah, that's kind of like the 25,000-foot view of Sigle, and I do believe that they are going to that it's going to be an amazingly popular used app going forward. I am incredibly excited to see how this goes.
Yeah. I could see it as like the medium of Web3. I got my start on Medium, and they went down the censorship route hardcore. And so I just stopped publishing there. That was my choice, but that wasn't, I escaped, right? I wasn't
All right.
removed from the system, but that's just me kind of seeing the writing on the wall. So, Pigeon, I know you've written some with Sigle too. How was your experience getting content up?
Oh, the experience with getting content up is great. They have a super easy to use platform. I'm actually a free user. I don't pay for anything yet, so I don't have those extra features and tools. But what I wanted to use it for was hosting my content on Web3. I wanted to be able to have articles and things that are associated with my NFT projects, and it just didn't seem quite right to do that on a Web3 or a Web2 platform. I felt that should be at least somehow related to Web3. So that's why I use I call it Sigle, but again,
I like
they'll
Sigle.
let us know.
Yeah, I think
Well,
Sigle makes
so
a lot of sense.
from gaming, you have a sigil that's like like an emblem, right?
Yeah, that's what I was
And
thinking of. Yeah.
That's what
yeah,
I was
so
thinking of as well. Yeah.
but I need another word to match up with what this company is. So I'm teetering back and forth as a linguistics person. I can't decide if I want to go the prescriptivist route or the descriptivist route. We'll see.
Yeah, I like it.
So, and actually, I think John or Jack picks out a really important point here. You're effortlessly yourself, it seems, on Twitter when I see you on there. I respect, number one, I respect the hell out of your insistence to never stray from your values. That's what all of my art is about, by the way. The style pigeons, the warrior pigeons, all of that is about value systems and the apparent lack of encouragement towards adopting a value system in today's culture. But you stand by yours. Is that something that was consciously battled out for you as to how to be that person, or are you just effortlessly yourself and haters be damned?
No, I can't take any credit for it. I come from a working class background, and my father was a great provider, but you're just born where you're born. And so you have a value system inherent in growing up in that type of place. And then you also have biology. Like we could call my mom, get her on this call real quick, and she'll tell you exactly what she feels about all of us. And but so actually what I have to do, what I do more often than not, is I actually self-censor more than I would like to. And I do that out of respect for other people's feelings, because a lot of people are pretty emotionally fragile. I mean, I'm just I'm gonna say it like I see it, especially
Yeah.
on social media. And I don't want to, like, intentionally hurt somebody or make their day worse or make them feel bad. I don't want to do that. So I self-censor a little more than I should. And and but at the same time, you know, you have to be true to who you are. That's one of the biggest life hacks that anyone will ever learn, is the quicker you know who you are and what your values are, the easier your life's going to be for the remainder of it. Trying to fight against who you are is a losing battle. So if you have values, you know, you have to be able to articulate them, you have to be able to defend them, and you have to be open to the possibility that you're wrong. And that's pretty much that. When I was a teenager, yeah, the term politically incorrect came up, right? That's the first time anyone really heard about this idea of, well, you shouldn't say this or you shouldn't say that. And then that was the seed of the wokeness tree we have now, right? Where so I think the reason why most people don't say, or more inclined to say what they think, is because you've had a whole generation now working on a second generation that's just been trained through positive and negative reinforcement to only say certain things. And I rejected that in my youth, and I reject that today because it's just not helpful. Like, you can be respectful for other people. You can be respectful of other people's feelings while still saying something that you believe is true. And so I do walk that line. I do try to be very respectful, because at the end of the day, we're either doing one of two things. We're either putting more love in the world, or we're putting more negative things in the world. And ideally, I want to put more love in the world. Like, that aligns with what we should all do. We're not just individuals, we're this entire biomass, and everyone's well-being is connected at some level, right? So I don't want to do that. But yeah, I just, I don't put much thought into it, other than just making sure what I'm saying is constructive, you know while still being, what I believe to be true, and reflected in my values.
Yeah.
I mean,
really
that's very
appreciate that.
clearly well thought through then. Um, you've clearly spent a lot of time with that, whether it was intentional or just happened naturally. I respect that like crazy. I go through the battle a lot. I actually have a small file on my phone that is for pictures of things that I didn't post on Twitter,
Right.
because because that solves the, like, I want to have the final word immaturity in me. Like, if I can just have that over here without doing the harmful part and ripping into somebody when I maybe really want to.
Right.
But my highest value is truth, and that's the big struggle for me. Is I feel called by whatever force runs the universe to speak truth whenever I say something, and that often leads to a indecision that I'm uncomfortable with, because um, there are plenty of instances where speaking the truth outright would be inappropriate and impolite. Um, and so I feel you on walking the line. That's not an easy thing to do, and I'm sorting it out for myself right now as I dive further and further into all this. What do you think Bitcoin and Web3 has to do with truth?
Well, I think that at the fundamental level, and I think people are just starting to realize this with ordinals and inscriptions, is that Bitcoin is completely honest. There is no deception to be found in Bitcoin. That's the brilliance of it. and and our I can speak as an American. I don't know what it's like in other countries. I have some idea what it's like in other Western nations, but we have a very tenuous grasp on the truth, and we have this idea that well, this might be true now and it might be true then, or just that it's easier to lie about something, and but that the deception is a very crafty thing, and when you start accepting smaller lies, and it's just like when you're a little kid and you do something your parents don't want you to do and you try to cover it up. If you told them something earlier and instead of them finding it out later, you wouldn't have gotten as much trouble. Bitcoin eliminates the human factor from that altogether. I mean, it's all there on the chain. So I believe that aside from the financial aspect of it, aside from Bitcoin being hard money, now we're like, oh wow, Bitcoin can also be a matter of record keeping. That's why I like Sigil. I think that not every single record needs to be put straight on the block, but if you can go ahead and develop systems and apps where you can still utilize that to have honest record keeping, that changes the game. I mean, how often does a politician or some public figure, say some asinine thing and then turn around and 6 months later you can't even find a record of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that Bitcoin fundamentally being something that can't lie, um once that is incorporated into the culture, right, once that becomes a bigger part of everyone's lives, I do believe it is going to be a force for truth, just strictly because of its utility. It takes the morality or indecision right out of it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's one of my favorite quotes from the episode so far is that Bitcoin is honest. Like that's such a simple way to say it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you ask people these days, do you think that the monetary system is being run from an honestly, I think most people would say no, you know? So it's nice to
Right.
at least be able to say, "Hey, here's this alternative."
Uh,
Man, this has been an incredible conversation so far, dude. I want to keep it rolling because we're getting close to our full hour. But so I want to know, like, personally, bringing it back to Sigil and your writing, what's been like your favorite interview or like piece of content that you've put out, either all time or even recently, however you want to approach it?
It's hard to say, man, because that's the honest question. Because first of all, that old saying, if you're the smartest guy in a room, you're in the wrong room. In this
100%.
space, you never have to worry about being the smartest guy in the room.
Amen, brother.
So
Amen.
when I talk to like John from NeoSwap, for instance, I'm just blown away by this man's intellect, right? And so when I'm interviewing John, which I'm gonna have an article about NeoSwap and some new stuff coming out this week, like
Awesome.
when I'm talking to John, I'm just like in awe of how his mind works and all of these technical details. But then if I'm talking to like Zero or Hodl or Jim or Dash or some folks like that or Bruff Star, and like not only are these really smart guys, but like they're so steeped in the culture. And what I learned recently as a result of writing this blog is that this entire culture has been formed and no one really knows yet, right? And it's a shared value system, and you don't get it until you're like in it talking to me, like, oh my god, like this dude gets it like I get it. And this is and you just want to see that spread, right? Because we live in this like super divided world that's divided at the benefit of people who are actually the ones in power. And then you see what decentralization actually means when you have this whole value system being created. And when you talk to guys like that, like you see it, right? You see it. You
Yeah.
see the innovation, you see the brilliance, you see this alternative to what the world is trying to serve you. And so it's hard to say precisely, oh, this is exactly the one, because there's just good things that I learn every time I do this. There's just
Yeah.
something, there's some new insight. So it's hard to say. I think that when I talk to Zero Authority DAO, I really got that concept of you don't need permission. You know, when I talk to Jim and Dash of this is number one, you know, you get this concept of like, okay, these dudes went into NFTs because they were in the music business and they were tired of seeing people get screwed on royalties. And like, here's this smart contract on Bitcoin, and these guys were already Bitcoiners, and they just knew like this solves that problem, right? And you talk to Bruffstar, who's like, yeah, I was, you know, I built on Ethereum because that's the thing that was that was going on. And then just as we were minting, we discovered stacks, and I'm like, so I just built this whole apparatus to get these NFTs from one chain to the other, and did it first, right? So
Star's a legend, man.
yeah,
He's doing
like,
some insane stuff.
you know, and you talk to Jamil from Gamma, and that dude is just an absolute gigabrain himself, and down to earth, and easy to talk to, and he gets it, and he's all about the artist, and he's all about the space, and he's not an ideologue. He's like, Stacks is Ethereum on Bitcoin essentially, and it's the best one. So this is why we're doing this here, and this is what's up, right? So yeah, man, it's hard to single out just one, just because every time you do it, I get great joy from it, you know, and I grow a little bit every time. So it's hard to say exactly which one. Even like today, like these kind of interactions, how much do you get out of it? A lot, you know, and you sit and you reflect, and you're like, man, that was great.
We get to work in this space together, and it's something super special. Like you said, being at the cutting edge is something that people traditionally haven't gotten to experience, but now here we are. You know, this is our everyday, and it's really exciting, like you said, to be able to meet like-minded people. So I feel that 100%. That's how I feel every time I get onto this show with Pigeon and with any guest that we bring on. It's like, wow, I'm in the right place with the right people, and it feels good.
100%, man.
Yeah. Well, cool. Hey, so we got a couple last questions that I wanted to hit before we wrap up. I feel like we've kind of touched on how has Bitcoin/Web3 changed your life, like in some sense. Do you have any like final thoughts you want to add there? Because the last question I want to start asking our guests is a first piece of advice for no coiners. So, but like, yeah, how has your life been changed by Bitcoin?
The biggest way it changed my life, you know, when I went into business, I did so with this idea of being able to set my children up. That was my motivation. And so getting in here and learning about this space and learning how to trade and so forth, I've been able to, you know, my oldest son, when he started his first job, I was able to get him into Bitcoin at $9,000, man. And like, you know, so he's been steadily investing, and I can tell him, hey, look, this is a dip, you should buy it. Now my second oldest son, same thing, right? Like, so in an inadvertent way, in a way that was completely unexpected, I've been able to fulfill one of my goals as a father, which is again like the most important thing to me in the world, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the biggest way.
No, I love that. And I identify with that a lot. And I know Pigeon does too. I actually just posted a meme from the Roundly X account today that said, you know, like trying to convince your family and they keep saying no, but like you realize that's okay because you get to be the Bitcoin person of the family. And like you're going to be the person that's going to be taking care of your family down the road because of how much you're preparing now. And that's, as a man, I mean, that's an incredibly fulfilling feeling to me.
Also,
and I know that it is to you guys too.
By the way, that's also the story of Noah's Ark, almost verbatim.
That's a good way to think of it.
That's true. That's
build a boat. Storm's coming.
That's
man.
Profound, man. Yeah, that is profound, dude.
Yeah, we're building an ark. I feel it. No, I feel it hardcore.
I like to take those big mythological stories and just inject them into people's lives. You'll start seeing the storm and building the boat thing more and more now.
Yeah, for sure.
The storm's coming. Nobody's coming to save us.
You're right.
It's true. Yeah, so here we are preparing for it, you know, making sure that our kids and our family are prepared too. And I love doing that. I love being here with you guys, building and doing all that kind of stuff. So to wrap us up, Jack, I would love to hear, like, what's the first piece of advice you give to a no coiner? Like maybe to people that are listening to the show, you know, what would be your final word to be like, hey, you know, here's what you need to be thinking about or doing?
You know, when I start talking to somebody, the very first thing I said, look, just go buy Bitcoin. Just literally just start there. And that starts the conversation. And, you know, then you're like, This is why this is a better alternative. This is why this is going to be the future. But what people need to understand, they look at Bitcoin and they see, you know, 20 grand, they see 22 grand. They're like, oh my God. So no, this is so early. There's something like 6 billion email addresses on this planet right now,
Yeah.
right? 6 billion. There's like, there's what, like, I think at the most, if I remember it right, 400 million, you know, crypto wallets, right? And how
Something like
many of
that.
those
Yeah.
are owned by the same people? You
Right.
know, like, this is early, you know, so it's not expensive. It's just expensive relative to this, you know, this fiat that is literally worthless.
Worthless.
Uh, so if you can get past that hurdle with somebody, you know, and make them see that, I think that's the beginning. Like, you know, it's not expensive. You are early. Yes, everyone wishes they would have got Bitcoin at 10 cents. Like,
Yeah.
that's okay. If Bitcoin's going to potentially be the currency of the world one day, which of all the mainstream mags in the world, I don't even know if y'all saw this yet. The Economist magazine, their front page on their newest issue is, Bitcoin's going to be the reserve currency. How did we not see this coming? Something along those lines, right? Like, no, you did know this was coming. We knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. You just wanted to keep other people from that opportunity so you could facilitate your scams a little bit longer. Like,
Yep.
no, buy Bitcoin. Do it right now. And then once you start understanding, then you buy stacks, because this is what's going to unlock Bitcoin's potential. We have a
Yeah.
whole economy that is going to be tooled using stacks and using proof of transfer. So buy Bitcoin, start learning, listen to shows like this, you know, you just learn to turn off the TV and understand the importance of this, because like Styled said, I mean, we're building an arc here, man. So get your ticket. Come on, let's do
Yeah.
this.
Hoorah. I feel that 100%. I love it.
Yeah.
Pigeon, any final thoughts from you as we're wrapping up here, dude?
Well, there's a lot of thoughts. This is amazing. I love talking to you, Jack. You're one
Same.
of
Thank you,
my
man.
like inspirational figures in the space. So, seeing what you do all the time is a big drive for me to try and continue my hustle, and you know, the turn off the TV thing. That's my final thought. I've got to turn off the TV.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I mean, it's really easy to be complacent and get off of work and kick back and just, you know, do your thing. But it's also really easy to just start learning a little bit every day. We talk
All right.
about dollar cost averaging on this show a lot, and that applies to more than just buying Bitcoin. It applies to learning Bitcoin. It applies to staying physically healthy. You know, like, it applies to having conversations with friends. Like, we've been conditioned to not have conversations, not have social interactions as much. And that type of stuff literally just takes small, consistent effort, dollar cost averaging.
All right.
So, you
That's
know, that's what we're about.
that's the best way. I mean, most people are not cut out to be traders, but anybody can dollar
Yeah.
cost average, and
Amen.
that's the best way to do it. And I use Roundly. I'm a fan of the product, and
Thanks, man.
it's just a great way to just forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying that it's good to you know, not be completely 100% all the time honest with your wife about your crypto purchases, but sometimes that's a good way to slip some under the door, you know.
Yeah. No, I say that all the time. Like, if I know a big shopping spree is coming up, you just ramp that multiplier up a little bit and be like, yeah, go spend. It'll be great. I'm gonna be happy.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's so great. Well, boys, this has been such a great episode. I've had a great time chatting with y'all. I hope that anybody that's been watching has been inspired to go learn more about Bitcoin and stacks. Go follow all of us on Twitter. Like, we're all here. We're all hustling together. JackBinswitch.btc. There's so much content. I'm looking forward to more content this week. You mentioned you got a couple things coming out. Do you want to tease anything out that people should be
Yeah.
looking forward to?
Stacks Degens. I just published one about Liquidium yesterday, which is a protocol that allows you to get, you know, take a illiquid NFT and get, you know, take a loan out against it, right? And it's a very thoughtful protocol. Stacks Degens has been doing some amazing things, and they're actually, just for a little spoiler alert, they're working on decentralized stacks mining pools, which is going to
Ooh,
be massive for the
yeah.
space. And it's not something that is profitable for the person who develops this, but it's so beneficial to the space. Like, hats off to those dudes. And they're also building an amazing GameFi infrastructure for stacks.
Hmm.
So that's going to be that's going to be one I'm going to be working on today. I've got John from NeoSwap. I'm talking to Mark from Hero Wallet, and so yeah, I've got a lot that I'll be writing this week, and yeah, I'll pump them out as quickly as I can.
I love it, man. I love it. That's so great. So yeah, hey, if you're looking for some more good content, follow Jack Binswitch on Twitter and on Sigle. And yeah, this is good stuff, man. Again, thank you. It's a
No,
pleasure
thank
as
you,
always to talk to another hustler. And I can't wait for the next time. We'll have you back on the show for sure. Talk about something else crazy in a few months, I'm sure.
dude. When this is what I love to do. I love to talk to people about this. My wife can only give me a dead-eyed stare so much. So, but she did. I'll say this. About 3 months ago, she made her first Bitcoin purchase on her own.
Hey,
Nothing from me.
Nice.
So it's rubbing off a little bit, but she still don't like to talk to me about it. So
well
yeah,
done,
man.
man. Little
It's all
Personality.
about
steps.
it.
Little steps. Cool, dude. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jack. We'll talk soon. I'll see you on the Twitterverse. Pigeon, thanks as always, dude. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend.
Oh yeah, y'all go
Yeah.
check out the merch. Check out the merch,
Oh, yeah.
stylepigeon.com. I'm super excited about it. Grab a t-shirt, whatever color you want. It's up there.
I'll be repping one soon.
Shameless
Awesome.
self-plug.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool, y'all. All right, Nick, if
Thanks,
you would
y'all.
roll the outro, please. Appreciate y'all.